chicken math is a real thing. I know it's kind of a running joke on Facebook groups and other social media platforms, especially with the backyard hobbyist, where it's like, oh, haha, chicken math got me again. My husband only thinks I have 3 hens, but I actually have 15 because these ones don't count because they're still babies and blah, blah, blah. But there is actual math involved in chickens if you want to be serious about setting up a breeding program and being able to house the birds. Now, first thing I'm going to say, don't try and raise more than what you can take care of and what you can house properly. It's just not going to work. Um, there was times when I had 20, 30 color varieties of a single breed, and I'd have one pair of this and one pair of that, and I might get a half a dozen chicks raised off it for the year, and you just don't really get anywhere with a breeding program when you do that. So stick to a few. So in this example, I'm going to just give you an outline on what it takes just to raise one variety from my perspective. Now, this could be one color variety within one breed, it could be one bloodline of game fowl, whatever you want. And I'm also going to figure this as being birds that are in wired runs as opposed to free range, because that's an entirely different ball game. And basically I'm going to run through this like I do with my Polish. Again, the housing requirements for game fowl are slightly different. So here we go. So for one variety, I would recommend keeping 3 subfamilies within the variety. You can look up clan mating. That's one way of doing it. The breeding systems that I use are a little bit of that, a little bit of blanket theory mating, some people call it. I'll get into that in another video as well, so stay tuned for that. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to establish enough genetic variety within the one color that you have so that you very rarely have to go outside of your own flock to get new bloodline in order to increase vigor, fertility, that kind of thing. So again, one variety, 3 families. Now each family should consist of 2 breeding trios. So one trio is a rooster and 2 hens, which means for your breeding stock you're going to have 2 roosters and 4 hens per family, which means 6 roosters and 12 hens per variety. Alright? Now let's say you choose to breed all of those. And I know I'm using trios here, but just because I'm using the word trio, you can still pair mate them. You just have to rotate the rooster back and forth over the hens. Okay? So now you got to figure out your incubator capacity. Now let's say you have 12 hens laying 6 eggs a week. That's 72 eggs a week. And it takes 3 weeks for the eggs to hatch. So that means you're going to have 3 weeks worth of eggs in the incubator at any given time. So that means you need to be able to hold 216 eggs, again, for one variety. Now for your hatcher, if you've got a separate hatcher, you only need 72 egg capacity because you're only hatching 1 week worth of eggs at a time. But there again, we're talking one variety here. There was a point in my life where I was setting 13 dozen eggs per week. So it adds up in a hurry. Alright, now let's say out of your hatcher you have really good success, you know what you're doing, you have 90% hatch rate. That comes out to 64.8. Always round up. 65 chicks, which are going to be approximately 50% male, 50% female. Okay? Now, here are the space requirements for medium-sized breeds such as a Polish or a game, if you're going to raise them artificially and not under a hen. Half a square foot per chick for their first week. So that means for the first week you need 32.5 square feet, or roughly a 4.5 by 8 foot pen for those chicks. At 2 weeks all the way up to 11 weeks, they only need 2.5 square feet. So that's pen 2 over here. That's 162.5 square feet, or a 10 by 16.25. You could probably just do a 10 by 16, or if you wanted to go overkill, you could do a 10 by 20. And you don't have to use 10. I just used 10 because it was an easier number. If you want to make, I don't know, your pens on 8-foot centers or 12-foot centers, that's up to you. As long as you get that total square footage, that's really what matters. Now we go to 12 to 20 weeks. They're almost mature. You're up to 5 square foot per bird, which means for this group, you're up to 325 square foot. Now at this point, I've usually split my roosters off from my pullets, and therefore you don't need as big of pens because you're splitting your flock in half. All right, and from then on out, you can just keep your roosters separate from your hens. So once you get to maturity, you're looking at 7.5 square foot per bird, which, if you kept them all together, would be 487 square feet for the entire group of 65 chicks. Now, if you were to keep all of them alive and you only hatched for 4 weeks off of one variety, you only need to build a pen the size of pen number 1, pen number 2, and pen number 3, just one of those each. Reason being is by the time the first ones are at 2 weeks, your second batch of chicks are in pen 1. By the time they're in pen 2, you've got chicks group number 3 in pen 1, number group 2 in pen 2, and group 1 in pen 3, so on and so forth. But you would need 4 pens of the mature size, or as I said, if you're splitting them into roosters and hens, you're going to need 8 if you kept them all. Now, if you're just starting out, you're probably going to want to keep them as long as you can so you can start to observe your birds and learn how to select through them for the next year's breeding stock. But as you get more advanced into it and you get the better feel for what your flock produces, you're going to be able to sort off those extra roosters and extra pullets faster and faster and younger to the point where you won't need pens this size because you will have eliminated the excess birds which are inferior. But that should give you just a little bit of an idea of what you're in for if you're starting to breed. And like I said, this is just the way I do it. Other people have different ways of doing it. But just to recap, one single variety within a breed, 6 roosters, 12 hens for breeding stock. All right, and then to raise your chicks for 1 month, you need 216 egg capacity and 72 egg capacity for hatching. And here's another shot of your space requirements for 65 chicks from each hatch. So if you have any questions or is there anything you want us to go over in more detail, just leave a comment. Thanks.